Hey, W.
What you doing over there?
I see, CW.
I see Reeds. How does that sound?
We're like 6 feet away from each other.
We can see each other as our glasses are fogging up
That's
from
right.
our masks.
And our masks are on. Can you tell?
Yeah. Do we sound fluffy? Or
Fluffy.
fuzzy? Super.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll Confessional. This is going to be part 2 of our interview with Neal Preston. Neal is the way he spells his name, not like Neil Young. So if you're going for his website and stuff, there you go. I'm Rita Wild.
I am C.W. West.
And this show is part 2 with one of the biggest rock photographers, Neal Preston. Neal has been taking concert photographs since the mid-'60s. But first,
this reminder, if you haven't listened to part 1, you should listen to part 1 before you listen to part 2. But as a second reminder, hey, to all of our fabulous Apple Podcast listeners, we ask that you please subscribe to us, rate us, and write a review. Every review helps us move up to the top of the music podcast charts. We are trying to climb to number 1 or number 350. We'll start with 350 and we'll keep going to 1. So
350.
Oh, 350. But it's very exciting to read a new review from a nice fan, and this show's review is from One Big Al. I love the in-depth interviews and the back-and-forth banter of the hosts. That's you and me, Reed.
Oh, hey.
Hey!
Thank you.
This is a really fun podcast. Y'all are missing out if you're not listening.
Y'all!
Y'all, another y'all. We had a y'all in a review earlier. There's a lot of y'alls.
I love it.
So,
Thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. You guys rock. Without you, we have no podcasts. This month, your pledges are helping with website domain fees.
Always fees. We know the times are hard right now, but if you can please spare as little as $1, that's 1/5 of a cup of coffee from Starbucks.
Wherever I go. Whatever's open these days.
If you can spare as little as $1 a month, please make a pledge on Patreon to be one of the supporters to this podcast. Believe it or not, we still have bills, and they aren't always small. So with your help, you can help us continue bringing you these amazing podcast episodes.
This episode is part 2 of our interview with Neal Preston. Neal is one of the biggest rock photographers around. I know that you have seen his pictures. We'll be talking to him about his relationship with the members of Queen, stories with his great friend and muse, Stevie Nicks. Neal also tells the story when he was with Nancy Kerrigan, when she got whacked in the knees by Tonya Harding. He was there. And we hear from Neal what it's like to be confronted on an airplane by a very inebriated and drunk John Bonham of Led Zeppelin. Plus stories about Bruce Springsteen.
You kind of read that one fast. Neal's been kind enough to share his photographs with us for you. So go to our website, rockandrollconfessional.rocks. And on Neal's page, as you listen to the show, you can see the photographs that we are talking about in the interview. Plus find out many other show notes. So, ladies and gentlemen and rock and rockettes, get ready for part 2 of a
So now, get ready for part 2 of a photographic trip into the past with our very special guest, Neal Preston. Let's talk about another band that you had, the close-up, the Access, the All-Access Pass, Queen. I mean, some of the most iconic photos in all of rock and roll. You took.
I've been lucky. I mean, after I saw you guys at the NAMM show, I was sitting and I was thinking, I've taken a bunch of photos that are pretty iconic. And this is not anything I ever think about. But I thought about Jimmy and the Jack Daniels, Robert and the Dove, 2 or 3 different ones of Fred, including the famous one with all of Wembley in the background. And I was on stage with them at Live Aid. Other ones of Bruce. I don't know how this happened, because you're too busy working to sit back and think. But Queen, we bonded like that. Brian became a really, really good friend. And Brian is, I don't know if you're aware of this, is besides being Brian May, the guitar player, he is a doctor, Dr. Brian May, with a degree in astrophysics. And he's one of the prime collectors and experts on stereoscopic photography.
He does
otherwise
3D
known as
photography.
Viewmaster reels.
Yeah.
And there's a book right there called Queen in 3D. You can see it.
That was all him, wasn't it? Didn't
no,
he do all the photos?
Some of us, that cover picture is mine.
Sorry.
They found a way to take a still photo and replicate the parallax difference between the left eye and the right eye, which is what, if you look on a Viewmaster reel, it's the same photo, but slightly shot from the left or right. To correct the parallax of the left eye and the right eye, that's what gives you the 3D when you look through it. I mean, it's explained better than I'm explaining it now in Brian's book. But so we bonded over that initially. He used to throw me his camera and say, just shoot some stuff from the pit tonight or whatever. And a lot of that stuff turned out in the book. And Brian is also the only rock star that ever came to my mom and dad's house.
Aww.
We had flown to New York on the red eye because Brian was going to some auction where there were a lot of stereo cameras, and we landed at like 6:30 in the morning, and apparently we couldn't even get into the viewing part of the auction until 10 a.m. And we're sitting at JFK. I said, well, my mom and dad live in Forest Hills, I'm sure my mom will, if she's awake, she'll cook us breakfast. I called my mom and said, come on over. And I will never forget all 6'2" of Brian, however tall he is, sitting in my mom's little kitchen at the little dining room table, eating scrambled eggs. And he loved it, you know. And till the day she passed away, my mom would say, how was that lovely boy from that group? She wouldn't remember his name. They let me really work the way I wanted to work. And the crew, those were my boys. And I have very specific feelings about rock crews, which we can talk about in a moment. But I didn't even realize. I mean, I loved Queen's music. But again, you don't know that anything's going to be iconic until you have the hindsight, the 20 years of being able to look back and measure it against other photos. And I saw a lot of Queen shows, and I've got a lot of stories. And I did 77, 78, 1980, 82, then Live Aid of South America in 81, Live Aid, then part of 86. That's a lot of time with one band. At Live Aid, which I was the official American photographer at British Live Aid. When Queen was about to go on, Jerry Stickles, their tour manager, legendary Jerry Stickles, grabbed me and said, get the fuck on stage. Come on, because don't forget, there was a lot of press. There were guys with cameras, cables and live. And it's a TV show. Shows like that, with all due respect to Bob Geldof and everyone else, those things are TV shows. 20-minute sets, quick turnaround.
Play the hits.
Yeah, it's like Woodstock 25 or whatever. But the second I got on stage, I felt I was at home. These are my boys. These are my guys, my band. And that's really the way I felt. And then, you're just running film through the camera because you only have a 20 or 30-minute set. I knew that they had done well. I didn't realize it was going to become the gig of a lifetime. And when I looked, I don't know, just when the movie came out, I went back and I looked at the actual, on YouTube, the actual set. And yeah, Freddie was amazing, but Brian May played like a man possessed. I've probably seen over 100 Queen shows. I've never heard him play like I heard him play. When I realized and watched it years later, holy shit, that came from somewhere else above.
Wow. A lot of channeling.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of channeling.
And, since the movie came out, they're always asking me about Freddie. You knew Freddie? What was he like? Was it like he was in the movie? Freddie. I'm convinced that Freddie Mercury is now one of the most famous people ever born on the face of the earth. I mean, you got Jesus Christ, Socrates, you got Hitler, you got a couple others, Freddie Mercury. I mean, it's unbelievable. The thing about Freddie was he loved being Freddie Mercury. Now, obviously, he had a different set of friends, if you know what I mean, than me, which didn't bother me. It was more girls for me and some other people. But he was so accepting of me, as they all were. I just remember him he just loved being Fred. And yeah, he was a great singer. And I've seen a lot of great singers. And that band was way ahead of their time. It's funny, Cameron never liked Queen. but I did. And look, 8 trillion people can't be wrong.
Yeah.
So,
When was the last time you shot Queen with Freddie? And how close was that to
86?
Was that Live Aid?
No, that's the year after Live Aid.
Okay.
That was the last tour they did. That was a British tour, or it was a European tour. Big stadium. I think they did 2 days at Wembley. I remember being at Slane Castle with them. Slane is an interesting place. It's in Ireland, and the Prince or the Duke of Slane or whatever the borough is, it's ordained that one day a year he can throw a big rock festival, and it's got room for like 300,000 people. And the idea was to always get the top band in the world for whatever year it was. So I've been to Slane with Queen. I've been there with Bruce. And I'll tell you, those people know how to drink there.
Oh, yeah.
I remember when we went to Slane with Bruce, I mean, people were, we're in the vans going for sound check, like either the morning of or the night before, whatever. And there's people sprawled out in the streets, just out of their minds drunk. And they just started drinking. By showtime, they're completely blotto. I mean, it's kind of funny.
God.
I will never forget that. I remember it distinctly with Bruce. So, go figure. But you Irish people, you know how to put it away, as they do in Russia, having been there with Billy Joel.
Mm.
But we won't just talk about booze this whole interview.
You've been all over the world. What audiences surprised you the most? I mean, American audiences are great, but if you travel around the world, I'm sure there's some that just knock you out completely.
Well, I'd say 2 places. The main one being South America, Brazil, on the Queen tour, Brazil, Argentina, pretty much everywhere we played, but specifically Brazil and Argentina. They knew every word to every song. When Freddie would sing Love of My Life, they would sing along every word. Now, this is a ballad. This is not Tie Your Mother Down or
We Will Rock You.
Or a crazy little thing even. And when I knew that when I went back to South America with them 5 years ago, was it? With Adam, I knew that Brian was going to play Love of My Life and just solo with an acoustic guitar. And I knew that I'd be crying my eyes out, and I knew that he'd be crying his eyes out, and that he'd see me crying. And that's exactly what happened. It was so surreal and amazing to be back there 35 years later with that band, different singer, but the love of that band. I mean, we were treated like the Beatles down there, and then some, the whole time in 81. And then the audiences in Japan, what's freaky about them is, and I've been there with Bruce, I was there with Duran Duran, Madonna, Michael Jackson, someone else I can't think of. But the fans will go nuts. And the second the music stops, they will sit in their chairs very politely. No one will move. And the guy in the PA will go, section 1, you may leave. And people will very orderly fashion leave. It's bizarre. They're robotic, But they loved, God, did they love Bruce. And this is the peak of the Born in the USA tour. This is 85, before he came and played stadiums here that summer. And here's another little known fact. But you remember, I'm sure, in 1975, Bruce was on the cover of Time and Newsweek. Mm-hmm. It almost happened again in 85, one day away. And I know that because I had the Time assignment, and I shot the cover, and Newsweek had a mole. Time magazine had a mole in Newsweek's picture department, and found out that Newsweek was planning to put Bruce on the cover. So my Time cover got knocked back to inside, but it came that close to happening again. A lot of people don't know that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
That's the magazine business for you.
When it's a non-concert photo shoot and it's U2 or it's Bruce or whatever, how much input do you have on where the photo is going to be taken, how it's going to be taken? I mean, where does your creativity come into it? Or does the label say, this is exactly what we want?
Well, it's not so much the label. It's what are we shooting? What's the end use of what this picture is? What's it going to be used for? Is it a general publicity photo? Is it for a specific magazine article? What's it for? So that will dictate the art director, the label, whomever it is, whoever has ordained that this photo needs to be shot and everyone agrees to do it. that will dictate, it'll be left to me to decide where, when, how quickly, and all those things. So every it's like a magazine assignment. Every single assignment is different. Again, you have to play the hand you're dealt with. Sometimes the U2 time cover we shot in the catering room at a gig in like Phoenix or something like that. The photo that's on Stevie's new box set, the retrospective, that's from a People magazine take that we did on her rooftop in Venice. Bruce, there's a million of them, so it's hard to even think of them. It depends. If you're on the road, obviously you don't have a lot of time, and it always helps. Well, I'm going to even go one level further than that. I cannot get my job done on tour without the help of the crew, road crew. People, and I'm adamant about this, people think that you go to the Forum or the Garden or wherever, the O2, and the show just lands from Mars. And nobody works harder under more stress and difficult conditions than someone on a big rock tour road crew. They don't get enough love. They don't get enough recognition. And these people work as hard as anyone, short of the U.S. military. And I'd even, I'd rather be fighting a war with the Queen crew than some of the guys I've met in Kuwait. But in fact, I want to give a shout out to a charity called Behind the Scenes that we donate a lot of money from print sales to, and they were created to help out guys on road crews that didn't have health insurance, and whatever happens, accidents, alcoholism, anything that can happen, if you don't have health insurance. So we've given a lot to Behind the Scenes, so I wanted to mention them. But the road crew is your best friend or your worst enemy. So when it comes to, saying, well, we need to throw a backdrop up here and we need power and, don't get in the crew's way, they'll help you out. That's all part of the jigsaw puzzle that happens when you're trying to do a studio shot, certainly on the road. As far as not on the road, again, why are we doing this? What's the end use? Probably the person I've done the most shoots with is Stevie, who I love to death and I consider a very good and close friend. She's probably the closest thing I've ever had to an actual muse in the definition of the word, which means someone who's an inspiration, a constant inspiration. And, we've played around with different shots and we've tried all kinds of things. And I got to say, she is the most creative person I've ever met. Not a day goes by that she doesn't write some poetry or paint or hand tint a photo or play piano. I mean, I'm talking every day. I actually have a tape of her doing Rockline years ago.
Oh, okay.
And she takes this call, and it's a fan. And it was Bob Coburn was
Yes.
the DJ. He says, okay, and Stevie, and the next call is from, Jolene in Vermont. And Jolene says, hi, Stevie. And Stevie says, hi, Jolene. And the question was, I noticed that you've hand tinted a bunch of photos on your albums. And I want to know how you learned to do that or who taught you to do it. And Stevie says, a very famous photographer friend of mine named Neal Preston gave me a set of Marshall's photo oils, which is what people use to hand tint. And I just knew that she'd get into it. And the day I gave it to her, that set of Marshall's photo oils, I also gave her a stack of Led Zeppelin prints because I knew she loved Zeppelin, maybe a couple of herself. And as she tells, she says, and Neal put some blue on one of my leg warmers. And I said, no, Neal, I don't like that. She said, why don't you just give me the oils and get lost? And I have her saying that. It's so her and, and she taught herself to be a world-class hand tinter as far as I'm concerned.
Wow.
And I've always told her that if the rock thing doesn't work out for you, there's a job for you at Time Life, because she is the best picture editor I've ever known. She's as good as any of the people from People or Time or SI or you name it. She is truly an amazement and the most creative person I know.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Can we pivot?
Go to sports.
You're representing LA Dodgers. I've got to talk to you about sports, because not only do you do some great rock and roll shots, great music shots, but you've done a lot of sports photography as well.
Yeah, I have.
And I was at the new Yankee Stadium, and a lot of your pictures are there, I guess, right?
Yeah, sorry to say, the way
you grew up in New York. Come on.
Yeah, I know, but I'm a Dodger fan, okay? And I fucking hate Reggie Jackson, and I fucking hate Greg Nettles. Sorry, but the way that I kind of got into shooting sports was I just started working for People magazine, and this was at the end of 1977, and I happened to get a Rolling Stone assignment to shoot Linda, who was singing the national anthem at the first World Series, LA-New York World Series, in a game in 1977 at Dodger Stadium.
Who's Linda?
Linda Ronstadt.
Thank you.
It's like Cher, or Adele.
That was McCartney.
Anyway, so in those days, the credential photographers were given this one big thing, and they'd punch out game 1, game 2. So I shot Linda singing the national anthem, and then I went to all the other games and shot a little here and there. And then, so I showed People magazine that I could actually shoot sports. The next year, 1978. Now, when was Thurman Munson killed? It was 1978 or 1977? I can't remember. But my first sports photo that was published was, I believe, 1978 from the series of, and it was a shot of Steve Yeager. Someone was sliding in a home, and Steve Yeager was the Dodgers catcher, and the ball was dribbling out of his mitt, and I got the shot, and so People started assigning me to go to the Olympics. I've done 6 Olympics, 4 Winter Olympics and 2 Summer Olympics. And for People magazine, it was really about the figure skating, because that's the glamour event. So I was with Nancy Kerrigan when she got bonked on the knee. Wow. I was told they had sent me to Detroit, and me and the writer were supposed to cover whoever won the male U.S. championships would mean they would go to the Olympics. And as soon as Nancy got bonked on the knee, my editor called me and says, no, stick with Kerrigan. I actually did a shoot with her that night.
Wow.
Afterwards.
Yeah, that night.
Wow.
And the next day I was on a plane to Boston. For some reason, Nancy and her agent, Jerry, kind of took to me, and I was with Nancy when she went to the doctor. She got an MRI. I have pictures of her being, with the big MRI. And the day after that, she went back to the doctor, and I was with her, and they showed her the x-rays. And I remember the doctor said to her, if you had been hit on the knee 1/8 of an inch over this way, you'd never skate again. If it had been, 1/4 of an inch to the right, you'd never walk again. Talk about dodging a bullet.
Oh,
and
God.
I was there with her, and we ended up doing, when she rehabbed and got back into shape and went to the Olympics, we did two time covers and a People cover. And I shot their wedding for them, Jerry and Nancy's. I've shot 5 weddings in my life. 1 for Nancy Kerrigan, 2 for Bruce Springsteen, and 2 for Ozzy, if you count the renewal of their vows. So my wedding career as a photographer is definitely over.
There's something that I read or saw somewhere about a picture of you took of Babe Ruth.
No.
Okay.
I'm not old enough.
No, I didn't think so.
Ruth Buzzy, perhaps. No, not Babe
Maybe
Ruth.
the candy bar.
Oh, maybe what you're thinking of is, and this is true, every year, opening day, I would get a credential to go shoot Dodger Stadium opening day. It was People magazine would get it for me, because you never know who was going to be around.
LA, come on.
And I'm sitting in the dugout about an hour before the game, all alone, camera bag, my feet, just, thinking about nothing. And Dodgers PR guy, Steve Brenner, very famous PR guy, comes rushing over to me. He says, he knows my name. He goes, you got your cameras? I said, yeah, come with me right now. Like, what did I do? I get ushered into Tommy Lasorda's office, and there's Frank. And you know which Frank I'm talking about.
Frank
Sinatra.
Oh, I thought it was Ronstadt.
Very good. Or and there was a no gaffer's tape. No, but Frank. And so all of a sudden, and I'm the only photographer there.
Oh my God! Yeah.
So shoot Frank and Tommy, and the players are coming in one by one to meet Frank. Pedro Guerrero's in there, and Bobby Welch was a friend of mine who used to pitch for the Dodgers. And he came in and it was just wild. And I was the only photographer there. And I remember, they had traded or picked up the contract of a guy named Jose Morales for part of a season or something. And he'd been in the Mexican leagues. He was like 49 years old or something. And let's just say a Louisville Slugger had nothing on Jose Morales, and that's all I remember about that. But yeah, so that might be the photo you're thinking of, Tommy Lasorda and Frank Sinatra, because I am not old enough to have shot Babe Ruth or Lou Gehrig.
Encounter with Babe Ruth.
Yeah, well, no.
Okay. Well,
no, like I said, Ruth Buzzy, perhaps. But,
Ruth Ronstadt.
Yeah, right. But no, I've worked with Michelle Kwan a lot. I've shot when we were in Kentucky shooting Elizabethtown. It turned out that Mike Tyson was fighting what ended up being his last title fight in Louisville, Kentucky, and it was going to be an off day for us. So I called SI, Sports Illustrated, and spoke to Steve, who was the picture editor, and said, "I'm in Louisville. I know that SI would have 3 photo credentials for every title fight. One guy for ringside, one guy would be about 8-10 rows back, and then a third guy up in the rafters." So I got the third credential up in the rafters, and I took our A-camera assistant on the movie. I took him to assist me at the fight when he was in heaven. And Sports Illustrated was the first magazine to go all digital because they realized that if they did that, they could get an extra day's worth of sports coverage in for the week before they closed the magazine. So we shot, and then you just throw it on a hard drive, and it's guys waiting to take it on a plane to New York. And 2 days later, I had the magazine, and I had the big double-page shot, which pissed off the boxing photographers. But I walked, and we were on our way to the whole company. We were done in Louisville, and we had to go to somewhere, Lincoln, Nebraska, and I strode down the aisle of showing everyone the Sports Illustrated cover, and that was a fun moment.
And how cool.
I wasn't a cover, it was the inside spread.
In Louisville, which is the home of Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Cassius Clay, it's like, it's
oh,
full
yeah.
Yeah.
But it turned out that Tyson had been knocked to the ground, he was on the floor back against the ropes, and he happened to be looking almost straight into my camera. I'm 400 feet away from him with a long lens, and that's the shot that they ran. Wow. And I'm very proud of it.
Wow. Amazing.
So, a lot of sports, a lot of track and field. I had a fucking horrible shoot with Barry Bonds.
I wonder why.
He's a dick.
Speaking of,
hi Barry.
Well, you know what? I'm sorry, but I had a great idea. My idea, and it was for the People magazine, like 25 most intriguing people of the year, whatever. And Barry Bonds is the year he hit 73 home runs. I had the best idea. You will appreciate this. My idea was in right field. There's a little lagoon. At not Candlestick, but whatever the ballpark is up in San Francisco.
AT&T.
Yeah, AT&T. Yeah. The place where the dickhead Giants play. But I'm a Dodger fan. Anyway,
Dodger fan.
But he would hit a lot of his home runs would go into the drink, and people would be in rowboats, paddling to get the balls. So my idea was, I want to shoot him. I want to be in a rowboat and have him in between the stadium and me, so I could shoot him in the boat with the stadium in back of him with like 73 baseballs.
Love it.
I'd figure out a way to have them not sink. I thought, fantastic idea.
Yeah.
Giants PR guy, fantastic idea. My editor, fantastic idea. They go to Barry Bonds. No, I ain't driving to San Francisco. Okay. But it's Barry. It's a good idea. No. In fact, not only did he not want to drive to San Francisco, and I already rented the rowboat and bought the baseballs, he didn't want to leave his bedroom. And in fact, what we ended up doing, which was kind of hokey, was I shot from his bedroom balcony into his backyard and wrote the number 73 using 73 baseballs. I mean, what do you do? But that was a good idea.
That was a great idea.
That was a solid editorial idea.
That was a great idea.
Exactly. What do you do?
McCovey Cove.
McCovey Cove, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I mean, McCovey would have done it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but but sports, it's funny. Sports people, I mean, I had a great dinner one night with Ron Say, and it was during the baseball strike in 81, I guess. Okay. And, my friend Judy Wong, who worked for Fleetwood Mac, may she rest in peace, a very dear friend of mine, was friends with Ron and Fran Say. And it was during the baseball strike. So she calls me up and says, "Do you want to go have dinner at the China Club with Ron and Fran?" I said, "Yeah." And of course, all I want to do is ask him about baseball. All he wants to do is ask him about rock and roll. So we got a little tipsy. And then Judy says to me, "Ron and Fran want to go to the Rainbow Bar and Grill." So, okay. So he had a 280Z with his license plate said 3B10, third base 10, because that was his name. He played his number rather, and he played third base. So we race our cars up San Vicente from 3rd Street. Of course, I don't remember what I was driving, but I wasn't going to keep up with him. And we go to the Rainbow, and they have the front. Whenever there's 2 restaurants that I have been known by first name in this town. One was the Rainbow, the other Muso's and Frank's. And we go in there, and they have the front table set aside for us. We're there for about a half an hour, boom, 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 drinking. And then someone comes to me and says, "Oh no, Fraser Smith came inside and said, 'I hear you're the one to talk to about meeting Ron Say,' as if I'm his manager or something." We end up going outside, and someone takes some pictures of me and Ron and Fraser Smith. And for years, the guys in the kitchen, every time they'd see me, they'd go, "Ron Say, Ron Say, Ron Say, Ron Say, Ron Say." Years later, someone asked me to teach one night a course at UCLA Extension. And this girl, after I teach this course, opens an envelope, and it's the picture of me and Fraser Smith and Ron Say. She was the one who had taken it.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Remember what I said? What goes around comes around. So that's the story.
Ready to wind down?
Yeah, we probably should.
Well, I know. I mean, we talked about Zeppelin. We talked about Queen.
I'd like to know.
Bruce, yeah.
Okay.
The Who.
Oh, we didn't even fucking talk about
Okay, well, hold on.
Damn fucking right.
Fucking A.
Fuck.
I want to know what happens to all of that back room after
when that day
moved
comes
on. Yeah, because A, there's a lot of photos in there that will never see the daylight, or there's a lot of negatives. B, who gets the rights, or where does your legacy go? What happens?
That's
How does
a very
it work?
personal question, which I'm not really going to answer because we haven't quite worked it out yet. Okay. But I will say that I'm not married and I don't have any kids.
That you know.
So believe me, I've been waiting for that knock on the door. You know, Mr. Preston, yeah.
Daddy.
Neal Preston, yeah. Born in New York City, yeah. Went to Forest Hills High School in class of 1970, yeah. I'm your son. You know, I've been waiting for that knock on the door.
Daddy.
But as far as I know, I don't have any.
Do you have to go through and destroy things?
No. I mean, I you know what? The collection will not be destroyed. There's different ways to go. I'm not going to talk about what I've discussed with my estate planner, but I could offer the Zeppelin stuff to the obvious people, you know, to Jimmy and Robert, or, you know, I could offer, you know, you could go down that route, but once you break the collection up, you break the collection up.
Sure.
So, there are things you can do with certain universities that are archiving stuff. There's various things that can be done, but I mean, they're not going to end up in a hole in the ground. They're not going to be burnt at some weird, bizarre bonfire.
All right, let's go back to the Who, because Pete Townshend's your number 3.
Pete Townshend's my number 1.
Number 1
for best ass,
well,
right?
Oh no.
What?
That's what he said in NAMM.
No. I said that
Prince.
At that photo, I had him sign a copy for me, and he had the Sharpie, and as he's signing it on his ass, he said, "That's quite a fine ass." And I said, "Well, it's not as fine as Prince's was." and he pretended not to hear me. He's
one rock star that really complimented your work.
I mean, you know what? I like to say, if you're in my business and you can't get a great shot of Pete Townsend, Freddie Mercury, or Jimmy Page on stage, quit your job and go work for fucking Roto-Rooter or some bizarre software company in Northern California or wherever, because they're giving it to you. They're handing it to you on a silver platter.
But Pete acknowledged that you were a great photographer, didn't he?
Pete has, Brian May has, I've been very lucky about, look, Pete can do no wrong on stage. I mean, he's a genius. I don't know what his IQ is, but it's mental level for sure. His book, I couldn't wait till his book came out, and it was 600 pages of exactly what I thought it was going to be. Mental self-torture and, blah, blah, blah. The most fun to shoot, the most fun to listen to. And I'm, besides John Lennon, he's the guy for me. John Lennon holds a different place in my heart for different reasons. As I got older, and I still love John Lennon, love the Beatles more than life. But Pete Townsend specifically, his lyrics, the way he plays, his performance ethic, there's nothing better than a Who show when they're all fucking drunk and pissed off at each other, which is the night I shot the cover of Maximum R&B.
Which is...
it's that same night.
Okay.
But on the cover, which might be inside, Pete's flying off the top of the box. That was one of the two best shows I've ever seen in my life. The Who at Winterland, 1976. The other one being the MC5 at a little club in New York City called Ungano's, which wasn't much bigger than 4 times the size of this room. And that was like a 747 taxiing through your bedroom. I will never forget that night. And someone actually told Wayne Kramer that I said that about that show. And Wayne was very complimentary. And, God, they were good. The MC5.
MC5.
Yeah. But them and the Who were the two best shows I've ever seen. And there's a lot of good shows I've seen.
Mm.
The Who, I went around the world on the Amnesty tour with Bruce and Sting and Tracy Chapman.
Is that Peter Gabriel on that one?
Yep, Peter Gabriel.
This was the stadium tour, right?
Yeah, this is in '88, and we played some bizarre places like Abidjan and the Ivory Coast and Harare, Zimbabwe, and and those people were just thrilled because they'll never in their lifetimes get to see anything like that. I remember the tickets at the New Delhi show were like $4 or something. And the people backstage were all part of the diplomatic crowd, sons and daughters of diplomats. And I remember Athens being horribly dirty. It's funny what you remember. Anyway, I've been to South Africa with Whitney. I did 2 weeks with Billy Joel in Russia. I've always wanted to go back to Russia because you don't get to see anything. It's gig. Backstage gig, hotel gig, backstage plane gig, backstage limo, backstage gig. You're there, but you might as well be in Cincinnati, You
go on vacations?
Good question.
And if you do you take photographs?
I used to never, I've been on some vacations. I used to never take a camera with me. Now I usually have a point and shoot, a little Leica or something, almost at all times. I mean, I don't have one around here, but I'm not on vacation to take pictures. Yeah, I'll take a picture of a beautiful sunset but it's not, it's about the vacation part of it, not about the photographically recording part of it.
Yeah.
But I love taking pictures. And I took a picture today of a really hot girl on Wilcox Avenue.
Did she know?
Absolutely not. I'm the sneaky cam of all time. I'm really good at that.
Of
course she didn't know.
Did you flash your gaffer's tape at her?
CW, we got to get him a girlfriend or a wife or something.
He's got one.
He's got a wife.
He doesn't act like one. I told one story about being a girl in some gaffer's tape, and this is all I can think about.
All right, so we have the bonus round now.
Okay.
And this is like
just like the lightning round?
Yes, it's exactly like that. It's fast and furious. So here we go with some quick questions. Who would you want to meet or shoot that you've never met?
Christina Aguilera.
Really? What makes her?
I think she's got some of the all-time pipes, and I don't know. It used to be Christina and Courtney Love, and I've since shot Courtney Love, and that's the God's honest truth, Christina Aguilera.
Okay. What's the craziest thing that ever happened on tour with you?
Really?
Yeah.
Besides
Oh,
not involving
man.
gaffers.
Well, the story about me being depantsed on the Zeppelin plane, I believe, is in there.
That was a unique story.
Yeah. I mean, John Bonham was very drunk. He came up to me and he said, if I'm going to tell the story, I got to tell the story.
Yeah, there's a story.
Last night of this leg of the tour was a makeup show in St. Louis because Robert had been sick. So we had to postpone that show. We fly out from Newark just to play St. Louis, and I'm going to get some sleep. So I decide during the encore, I drop one blue Valium, 10 milligrams. In the limo, I drop another blue Valium. It's 20 milligrams. And just as I get on the plane, I drop a third one, 30 milligrams of Valium coursing through my bloodstream. Put my bag down. I stake out a piece of couch. I go get a Coke or what, a little something to eat. And I feel it coming on. And I'm just about to lay down. And John Bonham, a very drunk John Bonham, says, "Let's see your knob." I don't know what to say. First of all, I'm really high. Second of all, what do you say to John Bonham? So I kind of laughed nervously, which infuriates him. I said, "Let's see your fucking knob." And before I know it, 3 of our security guys, all of whom were off-duty New York cops, packing heat, not that they needed it, wrestled me to the ground, and I'm loaded on Valium. This was not a fight I was going to win anyway, but every bit of my clothes ripped off, and I'm laying stark naked on the floor, and I look up to see a somewhat amused Jimmy Page looking over me playing judge and jury, obviously not impressed with what he was looking at. That's the story.
Well, at least you have
It's
a
all
story.
true, baby.
Yeah.
It's all true.
What band do you regret never seeing live?
The Beatles,
Mm,
for obvious reasons, It's
the Beatles. And what is your coolest piece of tour memorabilia besides your
Oh,
photographs?
God. It's funny because I don't keep tour memorabilia. I gave it all away, it's never been anything. God, I don't know.
No Zeppelin tour jacket or anything?
You know what? That stuff would always get stolen. Like a lot of bands used to give out duffel bags,
Yeah.
and they'd always get stolen at airports. Who wasn't in 1985? Who wasn't going to lift a Bruce Springsteen Born USA duffel bag? I have some photos at where I live, my place in another city, which are photos signed to me from Pete, from Stevie, Tom Petty, Greg, Allman, etc. It's not tour memorabilia. I was going through some folder once, and a friend of mine was over at my house, and lo and behold, a Led Zeppelin Nebworth laminate drops out of the folder. And this girl had done me a lot of favors, and I gave it to her as a birthday present.
Yeah.
I gave away all my laminates years and years ago to some girl that I ended up with one night. And the next day she says, "Wow, these are great. Do you need them?" I said, "Why?" She says, "Well, I could use the money. I could probably get I'm not going to steal them or anything." I said, "Honey, take them. I don't need them. I don't want them. I've got the ultimate memorabilia."
Yeah.
So that's where those went. And I don't really I have one of the objects,
Okay.
from the Led Zeppelin
From Atlantic
presence.
Records?
Yeah, but that was a record company.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I've got a signed copy of my first Zeppelin book that Jimmy signed to me that I was going to throw away because it was all ratty. And I thought, what the hell is this? I almost threw it away. But as far as tour memorabilia, I don't really keep that stuff.
Okay.
I know
Sports memorabilia?
Cameron collects set lists. So I'm always grabbing copies of set lists and putting it in the mail to him.
That's cool.
Sports memorabilia, I've got a couple of autographed baseballs, but you know what? I'm not a memorabilia guy. My only piece of memorabilia that I actually have at home framed is from Almost Famous, the actual t-shirt from the scene with the out of focus guys. Obviously I had to shoot the picture for that. But the day we shot that scene, when we were done, my friend Woody, Randy Woodside, who was the gaffer, took it off the set and kept it. Now, you always have backups in case you have to reshoot in 6 months or something. So all the costumes have backups. But he took the actual t-shirt and it killed me. I really wanted it. 15 years later or something, he gave it to me for a birthday present. And it had been in the laundry 1,000 times. It was faded. There was like a mustard stain from Dodger Stadium.
Hopefully it was mustard.
There was some lipstick on it. No, and I took it and I had it framed, and it's in my place. And that's kind of the only memorabilia that I ever wanted. Wow. Otherwise, it's all up here and it's all in those file cabinets.
I don't know where you got the cojones for this, but Wembley Stadium, Bruce Springsteen, and you have like this iconic shot, and you actually went up to Bruce.
Yeah.
Before he went on stage. Nobody does that.
Well, I did it.
And asked him to do something.
Yeah. Well, when you're on tour night after night, day after day, you can't just stand in the pit or wherever and take the same picture over and over. You have to start looking at what you're doing through a different set of glasses, so to speak. So I wanted to do something different. And I had this idea because there was the main stage and there were these two runways, one that went stage left, one that went stage right. That Clarence would go to one and during certain parts of the show and Bruce would go to the other. And I decided I thought to myself, I've got an idea. If I take a Nikon and clamp it to the back rail of this little pod stage, looking out towards the crowd. It's called a reverse shot when you shoot from the stage looking out. And I have a full frame fisheye on it, which is not a circular fisheye, but it shoots 180 degrees left to right, 140 top to bottom. So it's an actual rectangle. It's just very wide. I thought I could clamp it there and run the remote cable underneath that little pod stage. And I know when Bruce is going to go out there because he goes out there the same point during the second half of the show. So during the intermission, so I've set this camera up. Oh, I had set it up for Clarence's side during the first half of the show. And then I set it up on Bruce's side. I went into his dressing room and I said, I've got this remote camera set up. I'm going to shoot from underneath the stage. If you remember, could you maybe turn around and if you play to the camera, I think we can get a really amazing shot where I can actually see her face with the whole crowd in the background. And he's kind of listening to me and not listening to me. And I thought, okay, so much for that idea. Whoops. And as I'm walking out the door, he says, okay, sure. And I thought, well, it's a start. Keep our fingers crossed. And then I think it was during Dancing in the Dark or
Hungry Heart.
It was Hungry Heart. Right before Hungry Heart, I go underneath the stage and there's my 10-foot cable hanging down with the trigger on it. And I see the boots coming towards the pod stage. So I know he's up there. I wait a little while and I count to 10 and boom, 36 frames, just kept my finger down on the trigger.
You didn't even know if he was really in position. And if he had turned around at that point.
It's a small enough stage and a wide enough lens that pre-focusing it, you'd have to be so close to be out of focus.
But you couldn't tell from where you were when he turned.
Of course not.
Okay.
No. Or if he turned.
Yeah.
I knew he was up there.
Yeah.
Right. I can't see him. So the next day when I souped the film, he not only had he turned around, but he's doing this, he's doing that, he's doing, amazing, which was made even more amazing by the fact that they didn't sell the seats in back of the stage. So he's doing all this for the camera, really, not for the people in front. Must have thought he was nuts, but you know what? It made for a great shot. And thank you, Bruce. And I love you. And I love Patty too. Yeah, that was a rare time when sometimes you got to do that stuff. You shoot. I did that with Kansas. My friend Phil Ehart, who was the drummer of Kansas. We used non-wire, like infrared, which always fucks up. I mean, you got to be hardwired to do that stuff. But I remember Phil telling me, because I had a camera mounted right by his snare. I mean, because it's hard to shoot these guys with all these cymbals and everything. And Phil said to me not too long ago, he said, I always felt bad that night that you had to go to those lengths to get a good photo of me. I said, did you like the photo? He said, it was fucking great. Case closed.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's called being a professional.
So now we have your prize.
Uh-oh. What's it going to be?
What did I win?
You won the world's smallest turntable.
A teeny tiny turntable.
With 3 discs.
Is this real?
Well, it's as real as it can
teeny
be.
Tiny turntable.
Yeah. You might have to put it together.
Oh, no.
Do I need teeny tiny records?
You need teeny tiny fingers to open the teeny tiny box. The records come with it.
They only play very short songs.
They do.
This is thank you guys.
So you can work on that when you're when you have nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Oh, are you kidding? This is going to be done by 7:45 at 7:30 now. Are you
Excellent.
kidding?
Well, Neal Preston, thank you so much for spending all your time.
Anytime, and
We really appreciate it.
you want to do it again? We can do it again sometime.
Okay.
That'd be awesome.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
And thank you to Rita.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neal.
The legendary Rita Wild, by the way.
Yes.
You know, I can't thank you enough as a fan for your work, your artwork.
Well, that's sweet.
And I love the fact in your new book that you write some of the stories along with it. That's where a lot of my questions came from. So, you know, it's a great book. You might want to check it out.
None of the stories are embellished. They're all real. And we are turning the book into a TV show.
Excellent.
6 or 8 episodes. We're just starting on the pilot. And I've written some stuff, some extra stories that are really
Perfect.
good.
Is Cameron involved with this?
I mean,
Don't tell him.
I mean, he'll be involved on.
Someone.
We're going to shoot some stuff, but no, this is my friend Casey Cannon is producing this, and it should be great. And unlike, there's going to be no talking heads, no people in front of a black background like those bad Tom Hanks documentaries. This is better.
Excellent.
And thank you for the emotions that you do bring out in all the photos and stuff, because
You're welcome.
you look through this book and you look at those pictures, and I mean, it brings back a lot. So
And the fact that you were willing to share this time, because you took a lot of your time. Thank you.
Yeah.
And such a great storyteller too. So thank you.
Not a problem. And let's do it again sometime.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds
All right.
great. Thank you.
And out.
So I don't know about you, Reitz, but when I looked at his book and those photos, I mean, it brought, even though I wasn't there, it brought back those intense memories.
Exactly.
You know? And that's what was so fascinating about talking to him. And not only that, but if you go and you check out our photos, you'll see, I think there's one with the three of us that were in there with all his cabinets. And it's like, that's like probably, in that photograph, probably a third of what were just the cabinets. And then there's still everything that he said was digital. That's just the analog stuff.
Yeah, he's got stuff all over. Just flipping through the book, you just see so many photographs that, man, if I could have been there. But you are there because of his brilliant photography. You know, there's like that picture of Jimmy Page in the bottle. I mean, everybody's seen that one when they're backstage. The picture of Bruce Springsteen at Wembley, you know, talking about how he got that to happen. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
I'm getting chills now just talking about it.
I kind of have an idea, if we bring him back on, I kind of have an idea that would actually incorporate, you know, some of our listeners. So we'll see down the line.
Yeah.
We'll see down the line.
He's so great. We thank you, Neal.
Yeah.
So special thanks to Neal for allowing us to meet at his cool studio. We also thank him for allowing us to post his photos on our website. Now you can follow Neal on Instagram at Neal, Neal, Neal Preston Photo, or on Facebook at Neal Preston Photography.
And Neal's book, Exhilarated and Exhausted, can be found wherever amazing books are sold. And we always like to suggest you support your local bookstore, so pick one up there, or if you have to, go to the big guy. If you'd like to order one of Neal's photographs, you can find a huge selection at the Morrison Hotel Gallery, which is in New York, Los Angeles, and Maui, or you can just go to morrisonhotelgallery.com.
Check out our show notes under each show title on our website, rockandrollconfessional.rocks. For today's show, you'll be able to see some of Neal's finest work that we talk about in the show. We're always working on fabulous guests, so please subscribe so you don't miss any shows.
Don't miss any. Please check our website out at rockandrollconfessional.rocks and like us and share us. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And what do you want to leave us with today?
Keep rocking. Keep washing your hands.
Okay.
Keep your safe space.
Okay.
Wear your masks. I know this is all big inconvenience, but it beats the alternative.
Right.
And we wish you well.
Yeah,
and health.
Stay safe, stay sane. Okay, bye.